So in the last episode, we talked about how life is actually simple and we tend to overcomplicate it for many different reasons. And then we kind of connected that to procrastination, how we overcomplicate things in order to procrastinate, or how we procrastinate so we can overcomplicate things. And we use both these methods, states, whatever you want to call them here, so we can justify us not doing the thing. We go back to Chris Williamson's, which is reading about the thing isn't doing the thing. I don't know the list that he was mentioning in that episode, but he goes on through a huge list of what is not doing the thing, and then he ends it with only doing the thing counts as doing the thing. Yeah. So between that and what we've talked about last episode, we can kind of state, or we can kind of say that procrastination is something that we all end up doing, so we can avoid doing the thing, not regardless, but because of many different reasons. Which, again, just going quickly through them as a build-up for this episode, we've got fears, we've got emotions that are connected to this, we've got laziness. Yeah, there's many other factors at hand that I can't think of right now, but for me, I would say that procrastination starts with fears before anything else, because it's rooted in us to have fears. Again, we can go through the fears that we've talked about so far, but I feel like we procrastinate because we are afraid of something.
But I want to start by asking, how do we even start with procrastinating? Like, is it just human nature thing that we want to avoid doing the work that we perceive as hard or difficult or something to be feared? Is it something just in our nature, or is it a downside in modern society, maybe because life is comfortable, so we start to think that we're supposed to lay on the couches not doing anything because this is what modern life is. It's just more about comfort and being happy all the time. So is it just something that is related to modern humans, or is it something to come to our nature? And I kind of think it's more the first one, which is just modern life society. Because humans, I don't think this is something that we struggle with.
So that is an interesting point of view, to be honest, because I've never thought about it. But I think that that's just my thoughts, purely my thoughts. Procrastination existed since the dawn of human being.
Okay.
But it was different before. Because if you're going to connect procrastination to fears, in our ancient times, in the Stone Ages where people had to fight or hunt animals to eat, the fear was there that they would end up getting killed. So, and they knew that they can go on for days without food. So instead of going to hunt every day, they can use that as an excuse to procrastinate, not to hunt today, but to leave the hunting for tomorrow. Did they do that? I honestly have no clue.
Maybe it was just harder to procrastinate because we had less.
It was harder.
Because it was harder to be comfortable.
Exactly. That's why I said it's different than it was back in the days if we were procrastinating, or if it is in human nature. But I think in today's society, we've gotten over complacency in our lives, where literally everything is easy, everything is can come to us without us having to put any effort into anything, and we have got more time to think and ponder. And of course, I guess as part of the human evolution as well, as the time goes on, we're becoming more and more self-aware. We can even notice this in our generation and the generations before us. Our generation, or the generations that tend to come after us, are kind of, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've noticed this based on my, I would say, connections with other people, like based on the people that I know or that I talk to, is that our generation and the generations that came after us are more self-aware at a younger age than the generations before. So I guess as time goes on, we're becoming more self-aware as part of the human evolution. Again, we've got overcomplacency, and that life, the society that we live in, just repeating what you said here, kind of gives us the permission to procrastinate. Because you can be doing something that you don't like, but it's getting the job done. It's like the being in a war situation is probably better for you kind of thing.
Yeah.
When you're working a job that you hate, but it's getting you paid well enough that you can come by. If you want to change the job, that's going to be more complicated than just staying in the job that you hate right now. But the job is giving you enough money. Whereas back in the days, there was no such huge differences, I guess. Like most jobs would pay the same, and there was only simple jobs where you're getting paid enough money to do this and this. So we have the leeway to procrastinate more due to the simplicity and the complacency that we've got right now. So we tend to go more in that direction instead of trying to go in the opposite direction, which is like, okay, I've got to do this, so I'm going to do this.
I feel like it's just because I feel like it's also because of the availability of so many options that we have in our lives that, okay, I'm going to procrastinate on this because I don't really need to do this. I can do other things. Maybe this is not really meant for me. I can do all of these other things that are available for me. But also because of these different options, we end up thinking the same thing about every one of them, and we end up also doing nothing and rather just do the easiest one, which is going on social media, following the news and what other people are doing. So it's kind of like, because of all of these different choices and options we have in our lives in the modern age.
As an example for that, I'm going to take an example from my own private life, which is when I started studying in university, I thought that I wanted to become an IT person. That's not a secret. But when I was younger, I knew IT as IT. Like you only have few different options of what IT could be, what you could study in IT. As in, you have like programming, coding, then you've got networking, then you've got some IT management roles. A few.
There's many different things.
A few, not even many. A few. Like based on my knowledge about it back in the days when I was younger, I was aware of like maybe 5 different fields of IT. Then when I reached the age of when I finished my high school and I wanted to start university, I was suddenly faced with like at least 20, 30 different options of IT that I could study or different fields of it. And I was overwhelmed of the many options that I had available for me. And I stood there, I didn't know what to choose, and I started procrastinating on what I wanted to do. And then, of course, I was offered the simple option of one of my friends and some other friends as well that have told me about a certain field of IT, which is in Germany, it's called economical IT. And I ended up just taking that or started studying that. Why? Because, again, it's the same thing what you were saying. You have so many options that you don't know which one to choose, so I end up taking the easiest one. And the easiest one for me at the time was, instead of having to check all the different options or different fields that are available for me, I'm just going to take the one that one of my friends wanted to study and the same one that like half of my other friends talked about that it's good and interesting. So I ended up taking that option.
But this also then ties it to something else, which is us being influenced by other people, which is
definitely
also derail us further from what we actually want. And maybe we end up procrastinating because this is not really.
But for me at that time, like I said, I was just like, I'm going to be honest, I was surprised by the many options that I had. And I was too lazy to check all the options. So I ended up taking the one that's easiest for me, which is the one that I heard about from many different people. So I was like, okay, why should I go and check all the other 29 options that I've got?
It's very overwhelming.
So I'm just going to take the one that's in front of me, or I will procrastinate. So I ended up procrastinating for some time. But when it was getting a little bit late and I didn't have much time left to apply, I ended up going with the one that was known for everybody.
But maybe this also means that another reason we procrastinate is that we hope that if we wait a little longer, something else will show up. Something will come to us that we don't have to do anything. And one day, something is just going to show up and it will be that thing that we are looking for.
Look at it like this. In marketing, in case you didn't know, in case a lot of people didn't know, the more options you have, the higher the chances are that people are not going to order anything. Which is why you have shops sometimes, or to food stands, next to each other. Because say you're walking down in a mall and you've got a coffee machine. So now what options do you have? When you see the coffee machine, you either
coffee.
have coffee or no drinks at all.
Yeah.
So you have only these two options.
Yeah.
But if you're walking down the same mall and there's two machines, one with hot drinks and one with coffee technically, and the other one with cold drinks, like, I don't know, sodas or something, the option suddenly shifted from coffee, no coffee, to coffee or soda.
Yeah.
Or maybe no drinks at all. But now the no drinks at all is being pushed even further.
Yeah.
Why? Because you've got two options. And this is why a lot of shops are usual, or you've got shopping districts where all the shops are next to each other. So you're offering people the options of like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then that nothing at all is always being pushed further and further down the line. So we forget to think that, okay, maybe I shouldn't buy anything in the first place.
That's an option.
Exactly. And it's the same with modern society, that we've got so many options that sometimes we end up getting lost in the so many options that we have, and we forget that there's another option that is
not doing anything.
It's none of these options. Maybe I should be checking something completely different, you know? And then again, it's the same in shopping districts. Since you've got so many options, you end up thinking which option you want to take. And then you end up completely forgetting that, okay, maybe I don't even need to shop in the first place. You know, like you're walking down a street where there's hundreds of shops, you know, and suddenly you start thinking, okay, maybe I should buy something. And then you're just stuck in that loop. I'm sure everyone has been there. I have been there. You're stuck in that loop of like, okay, what should I buy? Even though you don't even need to buy anything. But it's modern society forces you. It's not like modern society forces you, but it's the society and the life that we have right now, the structure of life that we have right now.
It's a consequence of the life that we have.
Exactly. Is that we have so many options that sometimes we end up getting stuck into that loop that forces us into procrastinating, because suddenly we have so many options and we don't know which one to choose. And then either we end up dwelling on not choosing anything, or we end up deciding that we're going to try everything. But both of these are procrastinating.
But this makes me feel like the people who are most prone to procrastinations are the people who are not sure about what they want in life, who are the most influenced by the people around them, who are just persuaded by any idea they read online. Because I think I like this, I think this is what I want.
Definitely.
But I don't know. I don't really know.
It's not just about not knowing what you want. I think it's also related to making the decision that you're going to stick with.
Because you mentioned this before, that someone being indecisive is someone who doesn't really know themselves clearly. And this is something that I disagreed with you for a while, but I kind of see the sense in it nowadays. That
I'm kind of changing my mind related to that a little tiny bit, because it's not just about knowing yourself. Okay, if I want to go a little bit off topic here. Okay, but I promise you this is going to be a little bit interesting. If I were to ask right now, who is Anas?
Anas is a name. It's an identity that is shaped.
How would you describe yourself?
I describe myself through my personality traits, for the most part. Like, not with the things that I do in life.
But hear me out. If you describe yourself as your personality traits, you technically have everything. You have every one of us has all the personality traits put in the right circumstances.
Sure.
So,
but some of us are better at doing certain things than other people.
Definitely. But when the time comes, you can still do,
of course,
the thing.
In the time of pressure.
So technically, we are not consistent in life.
Of course not. I give you an example for this.
We're always changing. We're always evolving. We're always adapting ourselves to our circumstances, and maybe to the life that we want to have in the future, regardless of the place that you're in life. So when people ask, or the question of how you describe yourself, for me at least, it feels really hard to answer. Okay, I know what I do most of the time. I know what my patterns are. I know how I see myself.
But this is still not really who.
But this is just something that is getting adapted to reality.
Yes.
You know?
Your circumstances.
And if I'm put in a different situation, I know that I would be completely different than the person that I am right now. So when you're changing all the time, then even if you know who you are, the who that you know is the current you, related to the circumstances and the time that you're in right now. Sure. So indecisiveness is not only related to knowing who you are.
It's related to knowing what you want.
Not even this. It's also related to deciding to stick up with something.
That's actually what I wanted to bring
Exactly.
out, that you
Because-
commit to certain things.
Exactly. For me, like this has been my life until like 2 years ago, I guess, where I have been swinging left and right
Yeah.
in life. I kind of knew who I was.
Mhm.
Okay, what does kind of? I knew who I was to a certain degree, and as time goes on, of course, we get to know each other, ourselves more and more.
Mhm.
But I, at that time, like until 2 years ago, I never decided to commit to one thing.
Mhm.
But I was always getting taken left and right, either because life
of
or
the lack
because
of commitment,
influences, because I don't want to commit to, like, okay, this is what we're doing, this is what we're sticking with. But once that shift happens in you and you decide that, okay, you know what, I want to commit to this thing, then you are
You're limiting
less
the options.
likely to swing left and right.
It's because you are limiting the choices and options in your life. And I feel like this is actually the antidote to procrastination. This is why I wanted to
Mhm.
bring up this point, that you need to commit to the things that you're doing in your life. You need to commit to the person, you need to commit to the career, you need to commit
Mhm.
to the hobbies, and not think, okay, what if there's something better out there? I'm sure there is something better.
The grass is always greener somewhere else.
I'm sure there is something better as
100%.
much as there is
Mhm.
something worse, but you need to commit in order to
Mhm.
fight this resistance. Because if you are more sure about what you want, even if you want other things,
Mhm.
you need to choose your wants and your needs
Mhm.
and stick to them. And this gives you more idea of who you are and what you want. Like,
Mhm.
you are building your identity anyway. Your identity is very fluid, and you decide what you want to do with it in life for the most part.
It's always changing.
For the most
That's
part,
why
exactly. That's why I agreed with your first perspective about indecisiveness, that it's more related to you not being sure about what you want in life.
Mhm.
And I think in our core, we are all not sure what we want in our life, but some people are more committing while
Mhm.
others don't know how to commit.
it's like some people, I don't remember the quote. Look at me. Sometimes I don't remember the names, but this is the first one. I don't remember the quote. Okay, there's a first for everything, I guess. Regardless, the quote or the scene, whatever it was, goes something like, "There's people who are born and they only want one thing and they only see this one thing, so they commit to it
Yes.
from a very young age."
Exactly.
And then there's other people, which I guess our kind of people, that we don't know what we want. Maybe we know what we want at the end of our life,
Mhm.
so like the bigger image of our life, but we don't have the specifics.
Yeah.
And we end up going left and right, trying different things out, which, by the way, a lot of people see it as a bad thing. I don't. I kind of like that, because you get to experience a lot of different
Mhm.
things until you decide to commit to something.
Yeah.
But the problem is that decision to commit to something. Because as long as you're not committing to something, you're not just going to be trying different things, but you're also going to be procrastinating the whole time
Yeah.
on making the decision. And you can end up getting stuck into that loop of like, okay, I want to try this out. I want to see this. I want to give this a shot. I want to do this. I want to do that. And you're never going to end up committing to, okay, like this is what I want.
The one path.
This is what I'm going what I'm going to try to make work regardless of the outcome or regardless of anything, and then just commit to it.
I think another way to understand procrastination, in order to, well, you can't really completely get rid of it, but to know how to deal with it, is
Mhm.
to understand that it is just resistance for the hard work. It's something I read
Mhm.
in a book that I can't remember the name exactly. I think it was The War on Art. I don't remember who the author was. But this book really described procrastination as resistance in your body, that there is this urge that tells you you need to do the hard work. You need to work on this video. You need to record this podcast episode. You need to help a friend. All of these things that require a little bit effort. But then you get this resistance that stops you somehow, that you feel like you just want to grab your phone, or you want to clean the house instead, or maybe sleep a little more and just chill in your room and just rather not do anything, like consuming instead of doing something, instead of creating. And that's the point, that something makes you resist creating something in this world. And we all have this resistance. And once we understand that it is a resistance, that is something we're supposed to, it's like an emotion that comes to us, that gives us ideas that, okay, maybe you would rather browse social media or do this or do that. And you don't need to listen to that. You can just do the work anyway. And this go back to Chris Williamson's point, that You don't think, you do the thing.
Yeah.
All of these other things are distraction. Your thoughts are distraction. You're just doing the thing, no matter what you're thinking. You're supposed to go to the gym, but you get the thoughts that maybe today you can take a day off and play video games instead. You don't have to listen to that. There is nothing telling you to listen to that. This is just resistance that you're not supposed to listen to.
I feel like though, as well from another perspective, it's, at least for me, that worked, which is trying to understand where your procrastination tendencies are coming from. Again, we've talked about where they could come from, but trying to figure out where they come from and trying to understand, say, fear, for example, trying to understand where that fear comes from. Why do you have it? And maybe try to dismantle it, befriend it, like understand that, okay, I'm just a human being. Of course, I have my fears, and regardless of the fears, you try to build the foundation that you need, so you can always. We go back to this example from before, from when we first started with this podcast, we talked about the foundation. It's like you're building your life as a building, and you've got the foundation. If stuff crumble, you have the foundation to fall back on, so you can start building again. But if the foundation is not correct and the building crumbles, then you're back to ground zero, and you don't want to go back to ground zero. So again, the foundation with the building, and even if you end up procrastinating there for some time, once you take a different perspective to it and you start looking at the building and the foundation, you're going to remember that, okay, right, we were on this path, so we can go back to building again.
It's a thing that you can't lose. Once you are going on a different path for some reason, that you're just being lost in the moment, you can remember this foundation that you can't really lose. It's like riding a bicycle. This never goes away. You can always go back to that. You're not going to go further down as long as you have this foundation.
There's a God, me and names. Belly something, I don't remember his name. A guy from the 90s, end of 90s, mid 90s, somewhere there. He talked about, he said that when he started, he wanted to make money. He wanted to become wealthy. He wanted to become rich. And his goal was always to make more and more money. His name is Bob. Bob what? I don't remember. But his name is Bob. And he's been on a lot of interviews. And I'm sure the people that watch podcasts would know about this guy, at least from the way he looks like. He said that his mentor told him to write a specific goal on a piece of paper or on a card, whatever it is. I don't know. I want to make $1 million or something like this, and leave that piece of paper in his wallet. And every time he sees himself procrastinating or kind of derailing off the path to achieve that goal, the only thing that he has to do is to reach into his wallet, pick up the piece of paper, take a look at it, and put it back. And he also said that his mentor also told him to look at it in the morning, look at it in the evening, which is kind of like words of affirmation, but it's a different perspective or something similar to it, where you're always looking at the reason why you started doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that will always put your foundation into perspective, so we can kind of eliminate or minimize procrastination, because you're always getting reminded by that piece of paper of your goal, which automatically is going to remind you of the foundation.
That's actually very powerful.
And
that's a really powerful way.
I'm not gonna lie, I've never done it. I've been meaning to do it.
No, actually,
but I've been procrastinating.
I've never done it on purpose, like consciously. It's something. It happens to me with my YouTube videos or the podcast. Like for me, it is just going to the channel, whether it's a podcast channel or my YouTube channel, and seeing the videos that I've made already, how they are stacking more and more, how I started, and how I am doing now, how we are doing now in the podcast, and that gives me the motivation to
definitely. It's a reminder,
going back on the path. This reminder that we got better, that we started somewhere, we got better, and these videos are stacking. It's like a library. It's like our journey from the beginning until now, and that gives me enough motivation every single time to keep going. So for everyone, for everything that they're doing, it could be something else. Definitely. It's just in our human nature that you need to have a reminder.
We kind of want to derail, we kind of want to do something else. We kind of want to,
because we forget.
It's not only this. Again, we go back to emotions. We want the spices. It's if you're doing the same thing every day because you want to get to a goal and it's always boring. You kind of need to add some spices to your life. So it's in our nature to try to go off path so we can, I don't know, get some spices or do something else.
Maybe something else is interesting out there.
So we always need that reminder of
why we started,
how we started, and where we're going. For everyone, it's a different thing, you know. But we can also connect it to the quote that we've used, that I've mentioned a long time ago in this podcast, which is what who he has why can bear anyhow.
Yes.
You know, we always go back to the reason, to the foundation, to the beginning point of why you are on this path.
That's what you need to keep in mind. Do you have anything else to say about this episode? I think we covered everything we want to talk about.
We kind of took the long way around.
I mean, still, I think
we took it from a more philosophical point of view, kind of.
Sure.
Instead of like going.
I mean, you can't really pinpoint exactly what procrastination is. You can take it from so many different angles of perspective. That's why when we started this episode, I was a little bit anxious and lost because I wasn't sure. Okay, where are we going with this? What are we exactly going to talk about? It's hard to pinpoint. So, yeah. So that's it for this episode. We hope we see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.
See you in the next one.